Previously on Docs Outside the Box. I'm currently living and doing residency in New York City. I like the city, but as you know, taxes are pretty high. Is it worth setting up a locums-focused LLC in another state solely for the purpose of reducing taxes?
I would make sure that you figure out a way to start your business and maintain your business in the most tax-efficient way, as well as the most time-saving way that you can do that. It's going to be tough to, really coordinate everything because you live in New York. You're probably going to have to end up paying state taxes because you live there. And if you have your business in another state, you're going to have to pay taxes just to have your company in that state also. So my advice is just talk to a
CPA.
A CPA about that.
All right. So Mona is going to have another question that we're going to answer today.
It's taking all our time. Dag, Mona. How many questions you got, yo?
Mona got questions on questions on questions. Okay. So Mona, who is a third-year neurology student, says, after listening to your podcast, I've decided to pursue locum work after graduating in 2026.
Good job.
Good job. I've been reaching out to some recruiting agencies to better understand the job market for neurology. Many of them request a CV either before or after an informational meeting. I wanted to ask for your advice. Do you think it's okay to share my CV at this stage? I recall you mentioning the concept of exclusivity in your podcast, where an agency having your CV might limit your options. Could you clarify how this works and what I should be mindful of before sending it out? Thank you both for your time and for the valuable insights you share on your podcast. Best. Thanks for this question too, Mona. Yeah, this is a great.
Listen, man, CVs, I'll be honest with you, Mona. CV is gold, electronic gold or paper gold, whichever way you want to look at it. But that's the currency that locum tenens companies work with, right? Because that CV represents so much more than just, what you've accomplished. It represents, as you mentioned, exclusivity, right? So the goal of a locums company is to present physicians or nurse practitioners or PAs or whatever it may be to a hospital, a clinic that is looking for that specific, position. And once that CV is sent to a hospital and they're looking at it, now that hospital is exposed to you, the practitioner. And once you are exposed to a practice or a hospital or a clinic, once they look at you, your CV by that agency, then that is it. You are stuck in that type of, whatever that may be, that space, exclusivity with that hospital. You're stuck with that agency in that fashion for usually it's about 2 years, right? So it's not that just giving your CV to the company locks you in. It's when the agency gives your CV to the hospital and then the hospital looks at it. Once they look at it, that's it. You're stuck in that, right? Because it's based off of the introduction, right? So what I would say is this: if you're looking at different agencies and you want to know like how much you think you can get or what jobs are out there and they want to see your CV, that's fine. You can let them see your CV, but you have to be very clear. And I would put this in an email. And say, hey, before you send my CV out to any hospital, to any clinic, to anybody, you need to have my written approval.
Written approval.
Right? You have to have a written approval from me by email that says that, yes, you can send my CV to this hospital, to this clinic, to whatever. Yeah. So here's an example. You meet an agency, you talk to, Nee Darko and Renee agency, and we're like, yo, man, we're going to get you mad money, yo. We're going to get you mad money working at mad hospitals. You want to do neurology? Yo, we got you, yo. We got you. But first, you got to credential with us, yo. You got to give us your name. We got to know all the different malpractice things you're in. We got to know where you got your education. We need all that stuff, your degrees, all that. And we also need your CV. And you're like, they sound like they're dope. Look how they talk. Right. And, listen how they talk and stuff. Right. They sound like they're woke. Right. Let me let me sign up with them. Right. So now when you do that, I may say, once you sign up with our company, right, we just say, okay, well, listen, there's a whole bunch of different hospitals that need a neurologist. And we want to send your CV to hospital A so they can consider you for a job that's going to pay you X amount of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
We technically cannot just send your CV to that hospital without your permission, right? But I know earlier you heard me say, make sure you send an email that says da 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 da. So I'm gonna tell you right now, sometimes you have some really overzealous representatives of that agency who will just submit your
Mm-hmm.
CV on your
Everybody don't
behalf,
care about the contract.
right? Trust me. Particularly, you'll see that at smaller companies, right? You'll see that
Mhm.
at smaller agencies or agencies that may be run by other doctors or agencies that may not really know like the national guidelines
Mhm.
of this stuff, right? NALTO. They may not know the NALTO guidelines of this stuff. And they'll submit your CV for you and you may not know about it. And then now you're in this hospital system, or you may not be able to go to a certain hospital system because let's say this agency that sent you said, hey, we're going to pay you $150 an hour. Meanwhile, you found another agency that you signed up for. And that's okay, guys. You can sign up for multiple
Multiple
agencies, right?
agencies.
You don't have to just go with us. You can go with all these other different agencies, right? Because there's thousands of opportunities out there, right? You can go with different hospital or different agencies, excuse me. And let's say, for example, you know, hospital A decided to contract with multiple agencies, and now the agency B is like, hey, like we'll pay you $200,
Mhm. For the same
but
hospital.
for the same hospital, but you can't move that route anymore because hospital or agency A already submitted your CV to that hospital. So now you're stuck in that 150 zone.
Right.
So that's why it's super important that yes, you can work with different agencies. That's great. I actually recommend that.
Mm-hmm.
But the key thing is to always email them and say, please do not send out my CV without my written, how do you say it? Use your,
My
which
expressed written
expressed,
consent.
express written consent, right? So that means they got to email you and ask for your permission before they submit your CV. And usually it usually works like this. Okay, like we got this job that I think you'll be perfect for. Um, they do X, Y, and Z. Can we submit your CV there? And then you think about it and then you write back yes or you say no. And that's it.
Yep. That's
Anything you want
that's
to add,
usually
Renee?
it. Yeah, I mean, it's not just for locum jobs either, right? So you have to be really careful, even if it's just regular recruitment, right? If you have different recruiter agencies that potentially are looking for jobs for you for even permanent positions, you have to be very careful about that as well,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
the
That's how they
fortune
make
is
their
in,
money.
yeah, the fortune is in the referral,
Yeah,
right? The fortune's
100%.
in the referral. So you just have to be really careful. So this is, this is where we say, yeah, we talk about locums a lot, right? Like we said, Dr. Love said, oh, we talk about locums a lot. We do talk about locums a lot, but there's some overlap with permanent positions. And, you just have to know, just because, let's say, for example, you say, you know what, I'm going to do locums. You decide that you're going to sign up with an agency or agencies, and you submit your CV to the agency. The agency asks, hey, can I submit your CV to this hospital? You say yes. You decide, however, you want to work permanently at that hospital for whatever reason. You're like, oh, bump locums,
Oh
don't want
yeah,
to do that anymore. I
yeah,
want to work here.
yeah.
You gonna have to talk to somebody, because you can't just decide that, well, this was for locums and now, I don't want to work locums anymore. You're gonna have to talk to somebody, because
This
potentially
happens a lot.
they might have to
This
buy
happens a
you
lot.
out. Right.
Yeah,
The hospital
it's
may
usually
actually have to
yeah,
buy you out.
yeah. So that the agency has a relationship with the hospital. Says, hey, listen, we're gonna send you this doc, but you can't just take them.
Right.
Right. You can't just take, let's say, because this happens. People will come and be like, yo, I really like it here. Like, this is amazing. I know I lived in New York City, but I really like it in Blackfoot, Idaho. I
Right.
want to live here. I
Right.
want to work here permanently.
Yep.
And these places, don't forget, when you're working as a locums, it costs the hospital more sometimes to pay you. Right. So they may say, hey, um, this is working, right? The hospital, like this is working. Why don't you work here? We'll put you on a salary and all these different things. You like it here. And you'd be like, yeah, that's great. I'll do it. And it's like, but you can't do that, guys. You cannot do that because you're there under the auspices that you're working with an agency.
Right.
And in order for the hospital to hire you permanently, they got to pay that agency off. And sometimes that might be like 50K, 50 stacks or 100 stacks, right? The agency wants their money.
Right.
So if you're not going to be working for them anymore, we're going to have to need some type of compensation.
Yeah.
This is like the music
Because
industry
it's a
almost.
damage, right? It's a damage to
Yeah.
the agency, right?
Oh
That
yeah. Yeah.
you were going to work and now they are losing you as a source of income. So it's a damage. So they essentially have to get compensated for that.
But
Um,
do you think, but I think sometimes people listening to this, they're like, man, there's just so many things that there's so many things that I gotta worry about with locums. Maybe I shouldn't go into it. Like, guys, it's not like that. Like, there are things that you gotta worry about,
with
but there are
everything.
things you gotta worry about if you was employed also.
Right.
It's just something to just keep in the back of your mind, and you can ask people, you can ask us. Don't be afraid to jump into locums just because
Yeah.
there's just certain things that you weren't anticipating. But I know there's a lot of people who are like that.
Yeah. There's no problem free industry, right? Like you're just going to it's just a question of which problems are you going to encounter. That's all. But this was a really good question because I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize when they start working with recruiters exactly what is happening. What
Yeah,
is
yeah.
happening. And so engaging with a recruiter, you just need to know, you need to understand what is the agreement by which you are working with this agency, by which you are working with this recruiter. So
Yeah,
just, be careful.
one thing I would say too is, listen, y'all, like, I think the advice we give to Mona, this is good, right? She's probably listening, like, y'all ain't saying my name right. Yo, when you write in next time and let us know we're not saying your name right, um, like
Give us
record,
a
like,
pronunciation.
yeah, give us a pronunciation if we're saying it wrong. So we apologize if we're saying it wrong. But Mona,
Damn.
I'm
You
just
just you
saying,
just had to say it like that. But Mona.
listen, I would say this. Remember, you are in control. You are always in control of this situation and you should act appropriately, right? So, when you're talking with a representative of the agency, just make sure this is more of a partnership. Make sure you are like really directing what you really want, right? Don't be led, lead. Okay. And I'll tell you about my example of how I didn't lead. So,
Mm.
I was working when I first started after fellowship, I said, I'm going to do locums. And listen, like I had never made more than what, $50,000, right? I never made more than $50,000
Being in residency.
being in residency. And then I started working with a locums company and, at the time, trauma surgery was really like in need. It still is really in need. But I was young. I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. And, they would tell me about all these different jobs. And I would just let them kind of just lead me to all these different places without really necessarily thinking about what it's doing to me. And there was at one point where I just said, look, here's my calendar. You can fill it up. You can fill it up for me. Right. And that was a big mistake,
Man.
guys. That was a big, because I was like, yo, I'm just trying to make money, yo. And that was a big mistake because what ended up happening at one point is I worked at one hospital and I worked a night shift. Sorry, I did a 24-hour shift, right? I worked I think it was like a Monday or Tuesday. I worked Monday, 7 a.m. and I finished no, sorry. I worked for a whole week, right? Not straight, but I worked for a whole week. And then the last shift was like on a Tuesday. And I did a 24-hour shift and I finished Wednesday morning. And I was supposed to be at a place 2 hours away and work starting at like 1 o'clock p.m.
Mhm.
Right. So I want you guys to follow me, right? I was supposed to be finishing my job at 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and I was supposed to be at a place 2 hours away and start working at 1 p.m.
Mhm.
Right. So, and the locums person knew this, but you got to remember, like, their focus is how much throughput can I get this doctor, this nurse practitioner, this PA, this respiratory therapist? How much can I get this person to work? Right.
Yep.
There's no way that person didn't know that. And ultimately, it's my fault. I should have checked the calendar, but I was so big
No,
on
no,
like,
no,
I
no.
got to make money.
Ultimately, it was your fault. You should not have given him your calendar. That was your first mistake, was giving him your
Look at Renee
calendar.
reading me. Look at Renee reading me.
Absolutely. You should not have given him your
Let the record show. Can you say that first? Say that.
let the
Let the record.
record show that you gave him the calendar. You opened yourself up to a vulnerability, right? And
Yes, I did.
he he
Yes, I
essen
did.
he essentially took advantage of that.
Like we
And
say, ain't nobody, you can't, your money, nobody's going to care about your money more than you. And
right.
nobody's going to care about your schedule and your working life more than you.
Yep.
Simple as that. Boom.
Exactly. Nobody gonna care about your time more than you. And so you know what you don't want is, like you said, to be led. You want to be able to lead, and you can say no if someone calls you and says, "Hey, I have this, I have that," and I can't do it. I can't do it. Here's when I'm available. That's what I do love about locums is it really, after you get into the groove of it, you really start to understand what your time means to you. Coming from medical school and residency, or if you're doing fellowship, you're always on someone else's time, right? And every time that you're on someone else's time, or rather I should say, any time that you decline being on that time, on someone else's time, you are always worried that it is going to cost you something. It's going to cost you an opportunity. It's going to cost you, clout. It's going to cost you, appearing to be a really good resident or a really good fellow, right? It's going to cost you something. What's great about locums is it's not going to cost you anything. It's not. To say no and decline to be on someone else's time, it's not going to cost you anything, because here's what you need to understand. If you can't work in the way that someone wants you to work, then that wasn't the work you're supposed to be doing in the first place. That's it. And so there are plenty of other opportunities out there for you to be able to be very efficient with
You
how
got
you work
to,
and how
guys, you
you
got to
make
practice.
your
You
income.
got to practice that muscle. You got to practice that muscle
Yeah.
early on to say, no, but I can do this. Or no, I'm just not available.
Right.
And that's it. It takes a while. It takes a lot, but you can do it. And it helps
Yeah.
you in the rest of your life also.
Yeah.
I remember there was one place that I was working locums at, and it was, let's just say it was time for me to move on to another job. Like emotionally, it was just too much. And there was a point where, um, from a working with coworkers, I just did not enjoy it. And there was a point where I was just like getting upset at them. And Renee had picked up on that and she was like, just don't go back anymore.
Mm.
And I was like, well, I can. She's like, but you're locum. So you could just say you don't want to go back.
You don't want to go back there. I don't like it here.
And
Bye.
and I like had dates coming up like several weeks in advance. It was outside of the 30-day window, but I had weeks that I already set up and everything. And I remember I called them and I said, you know what, guys, I'm not going to work X, Y, and Z anymore. I'm done. You know what they said? Okay, thanks. And that was it. Right. And
Right.
I spent so much time focusing on what they're going to say, if they're going to be
Perseverating.
disappointed, are
Yeah.
they going to be mad about it, all these different things. And I just learned, right? I was like, well, they don't even care. They just want a warm body to cover whatever it may be. And probably they also knew that, look, like this relationship is not really working anymore. And I was glad to leave that place. And you know what? That program doesn't even exist anymore. So, yeah, you know what? But the most
Why are you
important thing,
reveling in that?
but the most important thing is this. Listen, the way how they treat people, they know who they are. The way how they treat people, you can't treat people like that, right? But the most important thing is this, guys. Like, you're in control, particularly once you finish. Excuse me, actually, to be honest with you, you're in control even in residency, right? It's just you really got to start practicing that muscle, right? You got to start practicing that muscle. I know you don't, but you are, you know, like, cause you can, like we talked about even in that bullying episode, right? With Dr. Bill Brew, right? Which was amazing,
Yeah.
right? There are times when you come in, there's certain power dynamics, hierarchical dynamics, but you can still let it be known that, look, like, I'm
Yeah.
not the one,
I mean, always
you
set
know?
boundaries for sure,
Right?
right? Always set boundaries.
You're not gonna come in like Denzel Washington, like, yo, I'm King Kong and I'm putting everybody in Pelican Bay.
You mother will be playing basketball in Pelican Bay when I get finished with you. King Kong ain't got on me.
You're not gonna come in like that in your residency. But also at the same time, I think there's a way that you can learn to be. Look at that fan. Oh man, I hope he's not like that in Black Panther. Don't let him do that in Black Panther. All right,
He's,
Coogler. Don't let him do that in Black Panther. All right.
yeah, I need to see. First of all, hold on. Hold on. I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick. Okay. Listen, Denzel, if you are out there listening, I want you to
Zoom in on Renee. Keep talking. Zoom in on Renee, Alfred. Zoom in on Renee.
I want you to hook up with the coach, your African dialect, African accent coach now.
Oh, but he did it with Stephen Biko. He did it before with Stephen Biko. It was good.
It's all right.
That was like 30 years ago for Cry Freedom, but he did it.
It's all right. It was all right. But I want him to do that today.
Wait, hold on.
Didn't he do a Jamaican accent once?
Don't you know this is going down road until 4 p.m., which is at least 5 hours away, 7 days a week for the last 10 years. So what are you doing coming up it?
Hold on a second. Who was the guy who got killed? Who was the guy who got killed by Killmonger? What was his name? Forrest Whitaker. His African accent wasn't that great.
Listen, this is why they killed him off.
Yo, listen,
like,
but nothing can be as bad.
Not gonna work.
Guys, nothing can be as bad as Will Smith's African accent. All right.
If you continue to deny my work, the world will deny my work. But men, your men, continue to die. Tell the truth.
Nothing can be as bad as that. So Denzel Washington has the floor is really low. Okay, so all of this, like, you can't do none of that.
No. It goes like this. Like this. This is the Denzel finger.
You think you could do this to me, Black Panther?
And then, no, but sometimes he does both. Like this.
That's not allowed. You can't do that.
And then sometimes
you can't do that.
Sometimes he does like he's typing. Like this. Like this. But it has to go like this. It's got to come up and drag a little bit like that.
All right, now you're dragging it out too much. You dragged it out too much. All right, so let's get back to answering this question. Oh my God. So listen, where was I at? I forgot where I was at. Listen, Mona, you got this. You got this, Mona. You're in control. You're in charge. Listen, everybody who wants to write in and ask us some questions, Renee, tell them how to.
So you can do like Mona did and text us. She texted us, both of us.
How does she text?
Questions. She texted us both of those questions. So you can text us like Mona did. Plymouth Rock.
Landed on us.
Landed on us. You can also send us a message in our DMs on Instagram, TikTok. You can write a comment on any of our questions write a comment on any of our posts on YouTube, on Instagram, TikTok, or you can go to our website, docsoutsidethebox.com, or if you just go down below, you'll see our fan mail as well as our text number that Mona used. So you can do that. But there are lots of different ways to get in contact with us. And we love getting questions from you guys and answering those questions. So keep them coming. We have so many questions that we need to answer.
I feel like I'm Batman. I feel like we're Batman. We're going to answer those questions, guys. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
Peace.